Welcome to Processing Purpose, a business and lifestyle podcast committed to having honest conversations about the stuff in our lives that is often suppressed, ignored, or overlooked. We are two brothers from very different backgrounds, but with one common goal. From entrepreneurship to relationships, from hobbies to house projects, nothing is off limits as we process becoming the best version of ourselves in business and life.
Not yet. We're back.
Heyo.
We love starting that way, always. But I am glad.
I think every podcast ever starts that way.
Yeah, I think so too.
And we're back.
I am especially glad to be back though, because I haven't seen you in a while. It's been maybe even a few weeks, which is pretty abnormal for us.
I think it's been 3 actually. Maybe
Yeah.
even the week before I left. So maybe at least 3.
Because I was gone before
Yeah.
you left, and then I got back when you were by the time you left.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before. We don't want this to turn into like a look what we get to do.
Yeah.
But this is a lifestyle and business podcast. This is about living your life to the fullest, and we want to share these things. We want you to know that these things are possible for you too, and I think it's totally relevant and important. So, do you want to kind of kick it off and share a little bit about where you've been?
Sure. Before we do that, though, what are we going to talk about today? Let's kind of prime the pump.
Yeah, you bet. So today, the thing that's been weighing on my heart, we talked about it a little bit this morning, and I don't necessarily think I'm going through it, but it's something I've experienced in the past and something I surely will experience in the future, is validation, the need for validation. And for me, it even goes beyond that. And for some reason, sometimes I need permission. I need permission from others to do what I want to do with my own life. It's really interesting. And I think that's a paradox most people experience at some point in their life and their trajectory of business. And so I think it's really important to talk through that. You know, what is that? What is it? How do we move through it? How do we work past it? Those sorts of things. And we talked about it a little bit as well, but I think there's some cognitive dissonance involved with that. We'll talk more about that later, but I think that's a topic that's important for everybody.
Yeah. I think it'll be an interesting one to pull apart. And like most of our topics, we didn't plan it. It was just like we showed up, set up, and it was like, what are we talking about today?
Which I love. That's my ethos. I wing it all the time. So
I'm definitely more of a planner.
Yeah, and I get it too, right? Like just getting things set in motion so you're thinking about what you're going to talk about. But for me, I just want it to be super raw and super genuine.
Yeah.
I want my responses to be genuine because all of us can pump up a really good message to anybody. But when you have all that time to think about it and prepare for it, I'm not saying it's fabricated, but when it's genuine, there's just something that comes across for me, at least sharing it with you. I just want you to feel the normalcy of life. That I don't want to create this idea that we're framing our lifestyle to be this perfect Facebook lifestyle. It's not. Yeah. We run into issues, and I want you to catch me off guard. You know, I want you to ask me questions where I'm like, I didn't think about that, and now I feel vulnerable. That's good. Which
is why we have those moments where we're like, oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, because there's a buildup of like, oh, I got something really important, but that's normal. I think that's what we all go through. So
that's where we're headed.
Yeah, that's where we're going to go. But I do want to just touch on this because you went on a really epic vacation. I've had my own, but you just had the time of your life, and I saw so many cool pictures. Yeah. But I've yet to catch up with you about it.
Yeah.
I want you just to kind of generally share about what it was. I haven't exposed what that is yet, but I do have a couple words that our friend gave us, or gave me, I should say, and said, you need to bring it up during the podcast. Don't give him any time to think about it. He's just got to explain or at least elaborate on these 2 words.
I have a few ideas of what it could be. It'll be interesting to see where that goes. But I spent 12 days and I went to Japan chasing powder snow for the skiers in our audience.
That is amazing.
I mean, Japan has world-class powder snow. It's known as the best powder snow on the planet. Yeah.
What was it like being in that culture?
It was really, really cool.
Was it?
Actually, because we were in a little area called Miyako, and it's a tiny little region. So you fly into Tokyo, you take a bullet train, an hour and a half to Nagano.
Okay.
And then so that's kind of northwest of Tokyo towards the mountains. And then from Nagano, we rented a couple of vans. There was 10 of us, and we drove just over an hour to Miyako. And I'm not even sure you'd call it a town. We were in Miyako Kogen. There's also Miyako Jetsu. It's kind of a bigger area. We were in just kind of a subset of that. But it's just this tiny little area. Like,
is it like where we live a little bit? Like
No.
a small town like that, or
no,
even
like,
smaller?
Small. Like
Whoa.
I'm not even sure there's like maybe 2 stop signs.
Wow.
And it had, maybe 10 or 15 restaurants, probably a half a dozen ski and snowboard shops, and then lodging, and that's it.
Wow.
And there was probably, all in town, maybe 200 to 300 people.
So did it feel like you had the whole mountain to yourself? I mean,
Yes.
was there anybody there?
Every day it felt like, and there's 10 mountains right there in that little area. 10. It's the Miyoko mountain region, but it's there's 10 little ski areas that kind of just go side by side there.
Thinking about moving there?
Returning, yes.
I was gonna say that seems like your dream world.
Yeah, it's a special area because you get, it's not super touristy, so you don't go and you feel like you're in the tourist trap of maybe Nagano or Hakuba. Hakuba is kind of the Whistler of Japan. That's where they hosted the Olympics, a lot of the alpine events and things like that. And it feels very like Range Rovers and Escalades rolling down the road everywhere type of environment versus like little vans and busted up jalopies and boarded up windows on buildings, and it's like I feel like I'm in Japan, like truly.
Do you feel like there's an authenticity when you're a true skier? And I'm not trying to dig on people that are posers, but there's posers out there, right? I would definitely be one of those guys. But when you're a
poser is someone who's trying.
Yeah, I'm not even trying. But anyway, let me just say that if I were to try, I would look like a poser. But nevertheless, when you're an authentic skier, a really skilled one, does that add like that? That's got to add something to it.
It does actually.
Yeah, I would think
it feels like you're going back to the beginning. Kind of.
Yeah.
In fact, we got to ski at a place called Seiki Onsen, which is the oldest ski area in all of Japan. I think it was like 1937 is when it started.
Wow.
And so, it's owned by this sweet old couple. They had to be in their 80s. She's at the ticket window. He's, kind of walking around.
Awesome.
It's got 2 chairs, 1 double and 1 single. It's one chair.
You ride on by yourself.
By yourself. And then they have 1 restaurant in a lodge. She also cooks all the food in the lodge. That is awesome. Is so cool.
That is cool.
It was so cool. And it's one of those areas that you see in a lot of the ski films and things like that. Like it gets that kind of pull since it was the first. But yeah, it was just a really cool cultural experience. The food's incredible. I mean, I ate pretty much ramen and sushi every day for the entire time I was there.
I love it. That's awesome.
So it was special.
Man, that's super cool. I didn't get to when I was in Patagonia, we stayed in the lodges, so you definitely got the posh experience. But just being in the smaller towns, seeing the villages, actually we got to stand on some ground that got wiped out by a glacial flood that wiped out an entire town. Wow. It was pretty sad actually. But point is like that and again that brings that level of authenticity to the experience that you just can't get otherwise in a big city or a tourist area. Just doesn't do it the same thing.
Yeah, we went to Hakuba on the tail end of our trip for we were actually going to be there for a couple of nights. We ended up only staying 1, but we were going to be there 2 nights. And we got in, walked around town, trying to find a place to eat, and it was just people everywhere, and all of us were just like, this is kind of ew.
Yeah.
Like after being like more a part of the culture,
right?
Like being now just a part of the tourist travel, I just felt none of us liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
when we came out of the Grand Ronde, and Alaska, when you are in a space, and I'm guessing where you guys were in Japan too, there was just so much quiet. There was so much natural. When you get back into the stimulation and all that, it's almost like a shock
to
your system. And we don't even know we're in it every single day. Yeah. We're in a bit of a trance. We're feeling all that, but man, we really need that quiet time, don't we? We really need that space.
Yeah.
Super
I think
important.
People that don't experience it don't realize they need it until they experience it, and they're like, whoa, I had no idea.
Yeah.
People that are just living in cities.
That's a good question to ask yourself. I'm not sure how to answer it, but what do you need that you don't know you need?
Yeah, well, if we could answer that, we would be a whole lot more healthier, wouldn't we?
We'd be solving a lot of world problems, that's for sure.
All right, so you said you had a couple of words. So let's fire this and then let's get into the topic before we bore everybody.
Yeah, still all really good stuff.
I mean,
All right,
we're having a good time, but
Yeah.
our listeners are like,
Yeah, move on. All right.
validation.
So
let's go.
2 words. First one is Joey's.
Joey's. So Joey's is a ski shop there in town,
Okay.
and I took my avalanche bag I had to refill the cylinder once we got there because you can't fly with a full compressed air cylinder for your Avi bag. So you have to take the regulator apart, take the can apart, travel with it disassembled, and then put it back together, and they have to fill it. And it was just a circus. I had to go there 3 times.
This is not working out well.
No, they filled it, and then it was like half empty when I woke up the next morning, and they were just, it just was a bit of a
Okie doke.
yeah. It was like this is not how I want my trip to start. It was kind of annoying, and they did right by me. They refunded my money for the refill, and they figured it out, and they got it all done.
Sure.
But they didn't get off on the right foot with me, so that was kind of annoying.
It's crazy when those fun things start that way.
Yeah.
You're like, come on, no, don't let this be a theme of my trip. Okay. I'm choosing between one of 2. I'm gonna bring up the other one. Bidet.
So if you've been to Japan, I mean, every single toilet, everyone has these fancy. You can buy them here in the States, like the fancy.
But nobody has them.
The fancy tops with all the buttons. Every toilet has the fancy tops with all the buttons there. Like, that's the toilet. It's not like a top they put on a regular toilet. Like, all the toilets have this fancy, like, control panel that sits next to the toilet. And everything's in Japanese, and it's got little logos on it, so you kind of have to, like, pull out Google Translate and go, what button am I going to push here?
Yeah.
But every single one has, a bidet built into it. So that's an experience if you've never had that happen before.
Well, I literally asked. So the friend that gave me these, his name's Chris. I'm going to throw him out there. And I literally walked up to him right when I saw him. I was like, how was Japan? And he goes, I'm getting a bidet. I was like, okay, can you elaborate on that a little bit? He goes, oh, man, if you've never used one, it changes your life forever. He goes, I've never felt so clean. I was like, okay.
It's pretty funny. You're a little tentative, right?
Of course.
You're like, what? Do I really want to push this button? But the water's warm. It comes out warm, and the seat's heated, and it's
luxury.
It's an experience. The Japanese know how to do their business in the bathroom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was awesome. Okay. At least we covered that. I just wanted to make sure, again, that you guys see that all these things are possible for you. If you're feeling like you're stuck or you're feeling like you can't get started, just know that you will get there gradually, then suddenly.
Yeah.
But let's kick it off with validation.
Yeah. So, when I walked in this morning, you're like, something that's been on my mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about and I'm going to circle back to something you said a couple of episodes too. I'll come back to that. But why has this been a kind of a recurring theme for you? Why do you feel that validation, permission, I think those are different things. But why do you feel that that's been something that's kind of been pinging you?
I think it's just a part of, naturally a part of who I am because I'm an idea guy. I'm a guy that it just flows into my brain. I don't try to think of things. I don't, and let me just be very clear. 99% of them are terrible. 1% of them are pretty good. So I get pretty excited about them. But point is when I do, immediately I'm trying to get validated that idea is a good one.
Sure.
Right. And then I'll gauge too, right? I'll throw something out there and someone's like, or what about this? I'm like, all right, maybe that's not a good idea. And I'll move on, right? And so I almost I've used it as a gauge as to whether or not it's worth my time to move forward on something or even give it something a little bit more thought. So, and a lot of that has to do with who you're actually trying to get validation from.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get validation from a hype person.
That's the big piece.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to get validation from? Because I can see that going the other direction too.
Right.
You could be really amped up about an idea, try and run it by your friend, and he's like, dude, you never follow through on anything. Like,
Right.
you're going to follow through on this one, whatever.
Right.
And shoot you down. And in reality, you need to stick to your guns and move forward, maybe. And maybe that was the wrong person to try and get validation from.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, a good friend of mine says, if somebody tells you no, you just ask the wrong person. And she's not necessarily wrong either.
Yeah.
And so, but I think you also got to be careful to not continually try to get validated by yes people also. You need to be validated by people that you look up to and respect and can challenge you a little bit. And I'd say 99.9% of the time, if I share an idea with somebody, it's to somebody I respect and I know that can give me some actual reaction and feedback to, to actually give me some enough information to whether or not it's worth my time. So it's been a big part of who I am. But to take it one step further, in terms of permission, validation, why I think those are kind of aligned is the validation for me gives me permission to move forward.
Okay.
Right? It creates this lane that I can finally check that box and say, okay, someone thinks this is good enough, or at least gives me an idea that I can believe it's good enough to keep moving forward on it. And so, and for me, there's a lot of business ideas or creative ideas that I've thought of that immediately my mind goes to partnership. And I don't know why, right? I know that I have weaknesses. I know I have parts of my personality that somebody else can execute much better than I can. And so maybe that's it. Maybe there's
Do you think that's because, and I don't want to put this on you, so you just correct me if you think that this isn't accurate, but do you think that's because you haven't had to go out and just create something totally on your own and prove to yourself that you could do it? I mean, you did a little bit with real estate. I don't mean to imply that you didn't, but you had Brooke and you had a lot of support and there was a lot of pieces versus just like, I just went out and made it happen, so I know I can do it.
And in real estate, there's such a structural framework, right, of how to go about it that it's not like you're really starting from ground zero, right?
Yeah.
You can stand on the shoulders of giants and build a real estate career on knowledge you never had, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. That's something I'm going to sit with and really, really ponder.
Because I think the reason why I bring it up is because I think that on some level, well, there's two ways to look at partnerships, right? On some level, I think it could be a limiting belief, like meaning I can't move forward with this unless I find the right partner.
Right.
That is true in some circumstances.
Sure.
Absolutely. I've got projects that I want to work on right now that I can't until I find the right partner.
Right.
I just, they bring a piece to the table that I don't have.
Right.
Okay. Totally true sometimes. But sometimes we use it as a crutch.
Big time.
Like, I just don't know if I can do this on my own.
Yeah.
Maybe you can.
Yeah. And I think, something you sent me a while ago that's really sunk in is a lot of us prevent ourselves from moving forward because we ask ourselves, are we spending our time the way we should be spending it? Am I doing the activities I should? Is it
good work?
Is this good work?
Yeah.
And I can't remember who said it, but they said it's totally irrelevant because your internal personal growth and the knowledge that you receive along the way is compounded and moves you forward in maybe that direction or other directions or new opportunities that you never knew could have existed had you not had that experience. And so I thought, whoa, that's good. Like, in other words, just start. Just keep moving forward and keep building and keep trying. For me, I talked about consistency being my word of the year. And so I'm not necessarily like trying to drum up new ideas and new ventures and all that kind of stuff. They're kind of naturally happening in the same lane I'm already in, which feels kind of good. But even then I needed validation. Even then I had to go to that person who I'm partnering with and go, what do you think about this? And his reaction was really good. So then we're moving forward on it. But I guess for me personally, I want to work toward having more inner strength, more inner confidence to know it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what they think, right? Like, just go build it anyway. And again, just not focused on the result or focused on the outcome, but just focused on the work itself.
Here's where I think some people, I'm not saying you, but some people miss that, is that inner strength doesn't come unless you take action and prove to yourself that it was as good as you thought it was going to be.
Right.
And so if people are waiting for that inner strength to just arrive, it doesn't just arrive. Like, you have to push yourself through a discomfort, through all the self-doubt, through the questions, through the pain. You have to fail and figure out that was wrong and why was that wrong, and then you succeed sometimes and you go, I knew that was going to work. Why did I know that one was going to work? And with repetition, your intuition gets better.
Yeah.
But even I, and I say even I as if I've got all this experience, but I look for validation. Like, every new idea that I have, I take it to my mastermind group.
Sure.
And go, am I thinking about this right?
Right.
Like, I have another thing that I'm in the process of getting ready to launch, and I'm going to sit down with them. I leave not next week, but the week after, and go to Mastermind. I'm be like, all right, I'm going to draw it all out and go, am I thinking about this right?
Sure.
They just have so much more. It comes back to what you said as far as making sure that you're asking the right people. They just have so much more experience, track record, just different perspectives to be able to look at this. And they know my strengths intimately, what I've worked on, what I've done well, what I don't do well, and they can put that all together and go, yeah, this is a good fit for you. Or, let's tweak it. Let's go a little bit different direction.
Right.
Knowing who to ask for that validation is pretty key.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, maybe validation is market research. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe you're actually finding out, is this a viable idea? Will the market respond in a way that is excited as I am? Right. And yeah, it's your friend. Yeah, it's somebody you trust. But, there's something to that. You have to actually test the market. You have to find out if people are interested at all. If people are like, this sucks, then it's probably a good chance, unless you have a negative person in your life, you need to sample that out a little bit. But I wonder if
I think you could look at validation a couple of ways. You could look at it like internal, like, am I enough?
Sure.
But then you could also look, validation from just a Webster's dictionary definition standpoint could absolutely also mean like proving a concept.
Sure.
Is it valid?
Right.
And so, that definitely is in alignment with the use of that word, at least.
Sure.
That, I'm going to go out and try and sell this to 10 people and see if I can get, 2 or 7 of them or whatever the number needs to be to buy. I'm validating the idea. So,
right. So maybe to look at it. Now, to take it over to permission, for me, it's definitely within my marriage, right? That knowing that any big decisions, especially business ones, are a potential lifestyle change.
Sure.
It is necessary, right? As I say or I've said to Brooke, that permission in a marriage is not mandated, but it's necessary, right? And so it's just a part of the relationship. It's a part of the respect factor. And so that is important. But beyond that, I want to start giving I'm saying these things, I'm putting them into action. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to push them forward. Is I want to give myself permission outside of my marriage and making sure I'm respecting my wife and my family's lifestyle. Like, I want to be the only one to give myself permission to go and move and shake. Right. And to your point is, maybe I haven't built it from the ground up, but I have proven to myself I have the work ethic and the drive and the determination to finally figure it out and get it done. I know that. I've proven that to myself.
Yeah.
And so why I need anything more than that to give myself permission? Yeah, I get stuck sometimes is what I'm saying. I get stuck in the space of like, I want to move toward this thing, but I feel like I'm holding myself back. I really do.
Well, you mentioned it, I think in the episode that just came out, 29, I think just launched, the one that just came out this last week. And you had mentioned how Brooke, after the Christmas party that you guys had done, I think it was the Christmas party, had pulled you aside afterwards and said, none of this happens without you.
It's huge.
And to have that level of validation, meaning, again, a different layer of validation, not on the front end, but on the backside, a reinforcement that you did good work here.
Yeah.
I don't think that can be, I always use this wrong, overstated, understated. I don't think it can be used enough, like validating your spouse that what they're giving their energies to is worthy.
Powerful.
It's so powerful.
It is very, very empowering, very encouraging, life-giving, healing in some ways for sure. That was huge. In fact, even, was it this morning or last night? I can't remember what it was, but I was talking to Brooke. She was being really sweet, saying nice things. And we had a big meeting yesterday and I facilitated the meeting. And anyway, she just was like, I was just really proud of you, just watching you up there the whole time. And that meant a lot, right?
Yeah.
And again, those little sweet kisses of empowerment, man, as a spouse, it means the world. I don't know how else to put it. It just means the world.
I'm reminded a little bit, it's kind of a random example, but it does work. It fits. Holly and I were watching a show called Special Forces.
Oh, is that with Steve Carell?
World's Greatest
Oh,
Test.
something
It's a reality TV show, and it's where celebrities come in to essentially go through, some sort of special forces training over the course of 10 days. It's obviously a modified version, but there's no prize. There's no gift to a charity. There's none of that. It's just like, you're here for pride and pride alone. And so it's always interesting to see which celebrities like have the guts to stick it out. And it's hardcore.
Yeah.
It's intense. But the way it connects for me is that on one of the last episodes, there was a male contestant, participant, and on his team was a female participant. And the way he was encouraging her, like, you got this, come on, push, and was bringing her along on the process. At one point, Holly just threw it out there. Didn't like say it to me, but she said it to me. She's like, I love the way he's always encouraging her. And I went,
Like, take a note kind of a
noted.
moment. Yeah.
Like, I need to do a better job telling Holly how good of a job she's doing.
Right.
And not just in the obvious areas. Like, I think I'm pretty good at telling her how good of a mom she is.
Sure.
Yeah, you're such a great mom. You're always taking care of the kids. Thank you so much. But outside of that, in the way she takes care of her health and the way she chooses to pursue hobbies, or, the way she pursues, capitalistic endeavors, new projects and the guest house. And
yeah, she's a
super powerhouse. And I need to do a better job of just telling her how amazing she's doing.
In simple words go a long way. I would add, even a little bit more enthusiasm with what you're saying. I'm not saying you specifically, but all of us, right? If we just add just a little inflection of enthusiasm to the words, it just adds a level of encouragement and empowerment that words just simply cannot do on their own, right? And so I often remind myself of that. Even if I'm feeling like I'm in a funk or I'm having a day, I'm reminded of Norris Williams, a great mentor. He said, save some for your wife, save some for your family, right? You got hard days, you got stuff coming down the pipe. They need you, right? They need that. And so for me, I tell people all the time, especially in our real estate world, that enthusiasm can mask any flaw you have. It really can. But boy, what a testament to self-awareness to be able to key in and go, there's a message here. I'm hearing it, I'm feeling it, and I'm going to do something about it. That's huge, man.
Yeah.
And when someone said the secrets to life, I think it might've been Gary Vee, it could have been somebody else, is internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. And when those two things align, very powerful things start to happen. Right. And so really proud of you for that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to be aware of it, which I was. And then it's another thing that it becomes conscious action.
Sure.
Right. And that is kind of a catalyst, right? But you can't do it unless you become aware of it.
Sure.
It's definitely a catalyst. But now trying to create a pattern of doing that is kind of the next iteration of that for me.
Right.
Remembering that when I do see something, an example of this is a really obvious one, but Holly just redid my office.
And it looks awesome, by the way. I was like, that looks like a pro came in and did your entire office. Redid your entire office.
It is spectacular. It looks.
She did built-ins. How'd she do the built-ins while you were gone?
She's magic. Yeah. It looks incredible. It really does. And that's a really obvious one to give props for because it's so dramatic.
Right.
But I tried to be really intentional with that, and I was, with just how appreciative I was and how much it meant to me, and that's important in a situation like that. But it needs to be in those little ones too. Yeah. In the little areas where, here's another example where I did it. This week she's dealt with some health challenges over the years. Yep. Namely her back.
From a car accident
early in our marriage. Almost 20 years ago now. And just this last week, she did Pilates in the morning and went skiing on her own in the afternoon, like in the same day. And that is such a huge win for her from where she's come from.
Yep.
To be able to do both of those in the same day, boss level for her. For anybody really to do a workout class in the morning and then go ski in the afternoon. But I really tried to encourage her, like, you've come so far. That is amazing. I'm so proud of you. Like, good job working on yourself. And so looking for those opportunities. So I'm trying to make it more, not just awareness, but more conscious on a routine.
Totally. And I'll share my, my trigger, at least in terms of, encouraging others or when I feel I need it, I give it. Does that make sense? So if I feel like I need love and attention, I give love and attention.
Okay.
Right? Because I know that a lot of times when I put it out there, it gets reciprocated. Right? So if I'm not getting it naturally and I need it, I'll put it out there because I usually get it back.
Sure.
So it kind of helps keep you on key of keeping that that regular rhythm of giving it back, But for me, it's because it's driven by a need.
Yeah.
And I understand you may not need that emotionally. But if you start feeling those feelings, I don't know, maybe that works as a trigger for you too.
Yeah.
Could help.
That's good. Let's talk about this in two other contexts. Employees.
Sure.
And our kids.
Since
we're on family, let's talk about it with kids. The need for validation for kids.
All day.
Hey, Dad, watch me. Watch this.
Yeah.
Right? It's nonstop. And I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit. Like, I feel like I do a pretty good job trying to appreciate what my kids do.
Sure.
And
That's awesome.
even though I feel like I do a good job, my kids still, are you proud of me, Dad?
Mm-hmm.
We hear the royal we hear negative way louder than we hear positive.
Oh, yeah.
And as a parent, we are constantly, whether we like it or not, just because of trying to craft these little humans into respectable human beings. No, stop. Don't do that.
A lot of that.
Stop that. Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gross. Don't do that again. Like, over and over and over and over. And then one time a day, you're like, God, good job.
Yeah.
And that's just not enough.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Very, very true. Convicting. Very true.
I'm so guilty. How can we still, and this is a question, and it's a little rhetorical because I don't know the answer, but, for us to talk about. How can we correct children well with the repetition that it truly takes and encourage them and be proud of them as often as it requires? How can both of those things be true?
I think I'm hesitant because it's so easy to say it and it's so much harder to do. But as I tell people in our real estate world, our agents in administration, come to me with the solution, not the problem. I don't want just the problem, right?
Unless talking to your kids.
Unless it can't be solved, I don't want to hear just the problem. Bring me the solution, right? Let's talk through the solution, or at least let's start getting that in motion so I can help you with it. But with kids, it's so easy. We've talked about it before. Did I teach my kids anything today or just yell at them? Saying no and don't, stop it over and over and over negatively reinforces that thing. Maybe there's a way to redirect with solutions instead of just saying no or don't, right? Okay. And maybe it's still relevant. Maybe they need to hear no, or it's a dangerous situation. They're putting themselves and others in danger. But a redirect of, hey, let's try this, right? I know I don't want them to do this, but what if we redirected them in this way and now it's not an issue? I don't know. I would love to do a better job of that.
It's so hard because for me, good behavior doesn't trigger. Bad behavior triggers.
Right.
Belching at the dinner table, right?
You don't do that?
Well, that's probably where they learned it, was me doing it.
Yeah.
But that type of thing, you're like, oh, stop that. That's gross. That's not how you behave at the dinner table. But when they go all the way through dinner and don't chew with their mouth open and they actually use their napkin, you don't necessarily, it doesn't trigger a response.
Right.
It's not like, hey, good job tonight. I saw that. It's just like, yeah, that's the way you're supposed to behave as a respectable, decent human being.
Right.
And there's a disconnect there for me. I see the negative. I don't always see the positive and recognize it. And how can we tune our awareness to seeing the positive?
Well, I want to share something. I may have shared this on a previous podcast, but there was a TED Talk I watched. It was a pediatric psychologist, and he explained that as a parent, your number one priority is to ensure that your child is a desirable playmate. If they do not learn how to be a desirable playmate by the age of 4 years old, they will forever, for the rest of their life, be an outcast in society. That is 100% accurate. All scientific research shows it.
Interesting.
And people will ask, well, how do I do that? And he said, the one thing you need to focus on is making sure your children do nothing that will make you not like them. Right? And I frame that because I think that's ultimately what drives us with the no's and don'ts and stops and all that is I'm trying to prevent myself from not liking you. Right? I hate to admit it, but there's been moments where I've kind of felt that way. Like, man, this is getting bad enough to where I'm not liking this and I'm not liking you. And of course I love my children deeply, and that's a different conversation. Yeah. But I mean, personality, conflict, all those sorts of things that start to add up and stack up in your relationship. Your job as a parent is to help them stay desirable, right? And I know that sounds superficial, but I can't argue with his analysis. It makes sense to me. And if your children can learn social skills to be a desirable playmate or a desirable human being in society, if they work hard and are kind and they're that person, everything's going to work out. Yeah. Everything's going to work out.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah. I wonder if we can tune our awareness to it as well.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like I saw a meme here on Instagram recently, and I'll do this with you. I don't know if I sent this to you or not, but look around this room.
Okay.
And find all the things that are brown.
Okay.
Just look around, find all the things that are brown in this room. You do it too. My dad's in the back here. Hey, Pops. Look around. Find all the things that are brown in this room.
Okay.
Okay? All right. How many things did you see that are red?
Just the brick is really all I noticed.
Yeah. Because now look around and see how many things are red.
A lot.
A lot
of red.
A lot's red.
Yeah.
And there's this, when you tune your awareness to what you're trying to see, you find it.
Right.
So I'm wondering if we can create, and I probably know the answer to this, but I'm wondering if we can create a mindset of, I'm going to find the good. I'm going to find the positive, the correct action. And maybe that's a Post-it note on the mirror of your bathroom. And maybe that's little things to remind you to do that, because I don't think it's just going to come naturally. But, little things to be like, find the good today. Find the good action today. Find the healthy response and reinforce it so that we are doing that more than what we're doing now.
As you're saying this, I just thought, when your child comes to you with a problem, because you can train them and help them as much as you want, rediscover what a solution looks like. But if they come to you with a problem, perhaps just ask them the question, what did you learn from that? Yeah. Right? Maybe make them think of a solution. If they haven't thought of it on their own, maybe that invokes something in them to go, yeah, what did I learn from this? I don't know. It might not work right off the bat, but I want to give that a shot. I want to try that. Yeah. And see if that just helps just get some sort of positive response out of them so they can start moving in a redirected way. Running a business is a lot like parenting. And I know that sounds too simplistic, but it is, right? Because every human being has needs and emotions, and it's our job to help manage that to some degree and help direct it in a way that makes sense for the business and maybe even for them personally. So how does that align with your employees? How does validation show up, permission show up? How does all that show up in your business?
Yeah, I think that it's important whether you are running the head of an organization with employees or volunteer organization or a nonprofit, like telling your employees that they're valued and they're doing good work. Yeah, that's a big deal. Employees are motivated by three things, and it's not any of these three things. Usually they have a strong piece that they're motivated by. One of these three. That's either money. I don't care what you think about me, just pay me.
Right.
Time, meaning time off. Like, I don't care how much you pay me. I don't even care what title you call me. but just make sure that I have enough free time. I want that balance.
I want to go climb some rocks.
Yeah. And then other people are the recognition, the titles to being noticed, that type of thing. It's the validation piece. And making sure that you understand which employees need what, and then doing that to show your appreciation.
Right.
It's a major component of having employees that are happy, that perform well optimally. They're not going to perform well optimally every day. Neither do I. But on the whole, on the arc, less turnover. Mm-hmm. They're excited to be with you and to follow wherever it is that you're leading. Like making sure that they know that they're valued. It's a massive piece of being an employer. And validation, I guess, could be communicated in any of those three ways.
Right.
Right. They're worthy if you pay them enough. They're worthy if you give them enough time off, or they're worthy if you give them the title or the recognition or the admiration that they deserve, feel that they deserve. So, yeah, it's a major component.
And it's a basic human need too, right? Like I think we all deserve to be heard, seen, and accepted. In validation and recognition, recognition is a form of validation, but validation, it does that. It secures that belief for your employee that this person really cares about me.
Yeah.
And I mean it. You really do need to care about that person. We actually had a kind of a moment yesterday. We had our meeting in house, and there were some feelings felt the other way, that she felt unappreciated. She felt unrecognized. And those sorts of things. And we talked through it, we worked through it. And then, at the end of the day, to finish our conversation, I gave her a huge hug. And I looked at her and I said, "You are loved and you are appreciated."
Yeah.
She felt it. She knew it. Even though she had those temporary feelings earlier in the day, she ultimately knew the overarching, the holistic view of her employment here, that she is well loved and well appreciated. And I think there's just, it's like with kids, and you don't need to tell your employees you love them, but I'm just saying, you can't overdo it. You can't overdo recognition. You can't overdo. Now you can puff people up too much. You got to make sure you have the right personalities. But when you have a loyal, hardworking individual that just wants to do well by you, there's not too much of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your assistant, there's no way. They couldn't do that too much for her.
Yeah.
She would feel amazing all the time.
Here's something else I've learned with that, though, is that you have to do it when it's not expected.
Yeah, great point.
An annual cost of living increase is not showing somebody that you appreciate them by paying them more.
Right.
That doesn't count.
Right.
And I that was the obvious example, but giving recognition, on the heels of somebody saying that, gosh, I'm just not feeling appreciated. Yes, needed.
Right.
You did it. But now doing it outside of that context to reinforce, no, I didn't just say it in that moment because I wanted you to feel good in that moment and you brought it to my attention and I felt guilty.
Right.
But I really do feel this way. That's where it actually makes a difference.
Right.
So we use Slack in our business
same.
to do all of our internal communication. We're a fully remote team, so it's the primary way that we communicate. And then we do weekly, stand-ups and Zoom meetings and things like that as well. But I'll just, whenever it pops into my mind, and it's probably once a quarter it'll pop into my mind, I'll just jump into Slack and direct message somebody and just say, "Hey, I just want you to know I really appreciate you working for us.
It's huge.
You've done some amazing work. I just want you to know I see you and I appreciate it. Thanks for being a part of the team." It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And you can just see in the responses, just like, wow, 14 exclamation points. Thank you.
It's really changed their day.
Yeah.
Big time. Wow. Good for you for doing that. And doing the little extra things, grabbing a bouquet of flowers on the way to work, those little extra touches. You got to remember too, your employees, if you're running your own business, they have two sides of pressure, right? They've got to do their job and execute it well, but they also got to make you happy and keep you happy all the time and make you impressed all the time. You know what I mean? So there's two sides of pressure for us. There's a lot of pressure in other ways, but you got to remember that's a lot on a person. And giving them that little extra validation will boost everything else they do.
Yeah.
All of this work over here that they're proud of, they're going to do more of and better work because you just boosted this side.
Well, and the irony is that works in the family unit too.
Big time.
Like, okay, yes, you can give flowers and chocolates for Valentine's Day. Congratulations.
So did everyone.
They was on the corner being slung, and you happened to stop and grab a bouquet. Way to go, Romeo. But when you do it on a Tuesday in March, when you know she had a bad day, that's when it actually matters.
Let me kick it up a notch for you dads out there too. Go pick wildflowers. Obviously, you can't right now, but when they come out, go out with the kids and pick wildflowers and make a bouquet.
You win.
You got points for a while.
You win.
All day.
But it's doing the things that are unexpected.
Yeah, it is.
It's when it's expected. It's not that it's not appreciated when it's expected. But like you called it points, it is. The credit that you get of being intentional and that you really do care goes up infinitely more when it's unexpected.
What about our parents? Us being children. Validation for them, from them, right? Like we talked about with my dad, getting my dad back in the mix and wanting that validation for my children from him, through him, and all that. And so, that multi-generational presence, we talk about that a lot, but validation, I'm still a child. I'm still a child of my parents. Yeah. And
I think that goes both ways. It's an interesting topic that you bring up. It goes both ways, meaning validation from your parents to you. We've talked about it a little bit in this podcast, but there was, I'll call it a rough patch. That's an overstatement. But there was a season between my relationship and my parents' relationship after I chose to not go into the family business where it was uncomfortable. And it created just and again, elephant in a room's too big of a statement, but there was just something there.
A little tension.
Just beneath the surface. Yeah. It was just a little bit of tension. Through the help of Family Lines, the organization that we sit on the board of, great nonprofit, by the way, if you guys are looking for a nonprofit.
FamilyLines.org.
to look into, to give into. But through the help of Family Lines, my dad and I went on one of the trips and got to the heart of what really was the root of some of those things. And to have my dad tell me that he was proud of me and that it was okay, it means a lot.
I got to watch that whole conversation. That was amazing.
It means a lot.
It meant a lot to me.
It means a lot. And so it goes from parents to kids. We talked about that, right? Us to our kids. It doesn't stop as they age out of being in your home. I'm not sure I can speak to it. I almost wish I had a microphone over on my dad, but I would bet that it goes from kids to parents on some level too.
Makes me wonder how much
you did a good job.
Yeah.
What you're doing, what you're choosing to pursue, what you're doing with your life is worthy and is good work. I'd be willing to bet it matters.
I don't think it can be understated, actually. I think that is of extreme importance for a father, specifically a father, to tell his son, you're doing good work and I'm proud of you. And I mean even the other way too, from a son to his father.
Sure.
Or, wow. Yeah, I didn't really even consider that, but yeah. And I actually talked to John, the founder of Family Lines, about this too. But during the first fundraiser we did, I had an opportunity to really go through some hard stuff, talking about my dad. But instead, I decided to honor him, and I don't know why, but that was validation for him. That. Of course, we can pick apart anything, but at the end of the day, I have an awesome father, and he needs to hear that and he needs to feel that.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder if I've shared this with a lot of people, but my experience during the Grand Ron trip, our steelheading trip together, only was as rich as it was because your dad was vulnerable the first night and opened up.
Yeah.
Had he not done that, I don't know if I would have in the same way.
It set the tone.
And so it makes me wonder if vulnerability can be a catalyst for validation.
I'm not sure that validation carries the weight without vulnerability.
Write that down.
I'm not sure it's possible. I'm not sure that you can validate someone. Superficial validation feels fake, feels forced.
Yep.
you can't do it unless you truly see that person and go, I got you. I see it.
Especially with all your nicks and cuts and dents, you know.
Yeah.
I see all that too, but I'm seeing through it. I see you, who you truly are. Man, it's really rich to have that person in your life.
Yeah. We covered a lot of ground.
We did. I love it. Every time we're like, what are we going to talk about? We talk about one word and we're like, how are we going to fill all that in? And I'm like, I think we will. We always do. It's pretty cool.
I don't know if that means that we're too verbose or.
It means that you and I have a lot of miles together.
Yeah.
We have a lot of rich history. That's what it means.
Yeah.
That's what it means to me.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, likewise.
This was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And thanks, Dad, for being here in our live studio audience.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening.
We out. Thank you for tuning in to Processing Purpose. We hope you grabbed a few gold nuggets to take one step forward in your journey of life and business. Please remember to like and subscribe our channel if you'd like to get more content to help you build and grow everything around you. Make today your best day. Today is day one.